Welcome to Retro Video Playback and to episode 39 of Tape Talk Tuesday. This episode I'm taking a look at Fast Times at Ridgemont High on VHS. From 1982. Despite taking place over the course of a school year, the California setting of Fast Times at Ridgemont High makes it one of my annual summer watches. At the same time, we're already at the end of summer and kids are back in school, so it makes sense to watch this movie now. We also recently passed, on August 13th, the movie's 43rd anniversary. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is emblematic of the 1980s, the shopping mall, the soundtrack of pop and rock songs, and of course, various 80s fashion styles that never should have been, and some that are still present today, like these timeless classic Vans slip-on shoes. I tend to lump Fast Times in with other somewhat similar coming-of-age movies like Dazed and Confused and American Graffiti, but unlike so many movies in this theme, the main difference between many of those other movies and Fast Times is that Fast Times is one of the few that actually takes place in the time that it was made, the 1980s, versus Dazed and Confused taking place in the 70s but being made in the 90s, American Graffiti taking place in the 1960s but being made in the 70s. There's no significance to this and it really doesn't mean anything, but I just think that's sort of interesting. So as you can see, I've got 2 copies of Fast Times at Ridgemont High on VHS, and I'm going to go over them one at a time. The first one is a copy from 1996. The primary image, which was also used on previous versions of the VHS dating back to the 1980s, features Sean Penn as one of the many characters we see in Fast Times, Spicoli. He's probably the most famous thing to come out of this movie. Not Sean Penn himself, but Spicoli as a character. Well, next to the red bathing suit anyway. From his lazy surfer voice to the van shoes as I noted earlier, to the scene where they exit the van and the puff of smoke emerges, Sean Penn as Spicoli became many people's favorite character. On either side of Spicoli are 2 girls, which is pretty random since these aren't characters in the movie, but whatever, I guess it makes for a good shot. As I noted on previous versions of the VHS, this shot was used, featuring just one character from the movie on the cover. As of this 1996 version, they made the decision to add some square pictures of 3 other characters, which makes sense, but is somewhat clumsily done. In those pictures are Jennifer Jason Leigh as Stacy, Judge Reinhold as Stacy's brother, Brad, and Phoebe Cates as Linda. At the very top is a nice, colorful Fast Times at Ridgemont High logo with the tagline, "Awesome! Awesome!" which is one of the final lines of the entire movie. I read that and I can just hear Spicoli saying it. Then we've got this version from 1999, which is primarily made up of the shot of Spicoli as the 1996 version, but cropped and zoomed on his face as if he wasn't taking up enough of the cover as it is. Below him are 3 shots of other characters, similar to the 1996 version, but on this version, they've swapped out Stacy for Damone, played by Robert Romanus. At the bottom is the same tagline as the 1996 version, and as a backdrop are palm trees, very California-esque, and the same Fast Times at Ridgemont High logo. The pair of tapes go nicely together when viewed from the tops and the sides, one a purpley blue and the other an orangey red, both featuring the same logo from the front covers. The backside of the 1996 version has more of the same purpley blue from the front and edges, and has a checkerboard pattern border to match the shoes I noted earlier. Inside the border is another movie title, a still of Linda and Stacy at their job at the food court, a still of Spicoli and the infamous teacher, Mr. Hand, I believe a pose shot of Linda from when they shot the red bikini scene, and a still from that scene featuring Linda again, this time with Brad as a part of his fantasy, and then over to the left and into the center is a shot of Spicoli and his surfer buds. Then we've got the write-up. Rarely has a film captured such a tremendous group of rising stars as in Amy Heckerling's directorial debut that has become a cult classic. 24-year-old first-time screenwriter Cameron Crowe went undercover as a high school student to give us an insider's perspective on sex, drugs, rock and roll, and trying to make it through another year at Ridgemont High. There's freshman Stacy getting plenty of bad advice from Linda on how to lose her virginity. Her brother, Brad, is the big man on campus who's grooming himself for a career in the fast food industry. And then there's Jeff Spicoli as the ultimate surfer who's most excellent at catching flack from Mr. Hand, a rigid history teacher convinced that everyone is on dope. Fast Times also gives us a glimpse of such future stars as Anthony Edwards, Eric Stoltz, Forrest Whitaker, and a young Nicolas Cage when he was still known as Nicolas Coppola in this groundbreaking film that does all the little things right. So, as you might know if you've seen my videos before, I read these for the first time while recording, and I just want to point out, decent write-up, just kind of tells you what it's about. I don't like that they're giving credit to some people like Nicolas Cage, who is basically an extra in the movie. That's like giving Renee Zellweger credit for being in Dazed and Confused. You wouldn't even know that they were necessarily in the movie unless it was pointed out to you. The backside of the 1999 version has got some similarities to the 96 version. In the top left is another movie title logo, and it's followed by 4 headshots: Mr. Hand, Stacy, Linda, and Spicoli. Lower down is the same image as the 96 version of Spicoli and his friends, then in between all of the shots is the write-up. And I'm sorry if you don't like listening to me reading those write-ups. In which case you're in luck, because I'm not going to read this write-up. I gave it a skim. I had a feeling it would be similar to the first one, and it is very much close to the same. Minor differences. I'm going to take another jab at Nicolas Cage. It says, this film also launched the careers of Nicolas Cage, and then goes on, no, that didn't launch the career of Nicolas Cage. Having Francis Ford Coppola as his uncle launched his career. But then it's closed out with, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is as funny today as it was a generation ago. I will very much agree with that statement, and we're even a couple of generations removed. The 1996 tape has a paper label with the same movie title logo we've seen elsewhere, while the 99 tape is not very well done in that it's actually hard to read from some angles. It's a boring, inked-on label with basic fonts. Ultimately, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is perfect on VHS, no matter which version you choose. It's been released many times over the years on various formats, and pretty consistently uses the same couple of versions of cover art, with the exception of the Criterion version, though that's typical for Criterion releases. Now, at the time of recording in September, is a great time to watch Fast Times. It's still technically summer, but school is also back in session. Really, it's an excellent movie that takes place over the course of an entire school year, so it's really watchable anytime. With that, we find ourselves at the end of our discussion of Fast Times at Ridgemont High on VHS, and the end of episode 39 of Tape Talk Tuesday. Thanks for watching Retro Video Playback.